Hey guys, how's it going? Now I know what the title says. Notre Dame still has a chance at the playoffs. There's a small chance at the playoffs. Now I want to start by saying this. I'm not crazy, I'm not stupid. I'm not just saying, "Hey, Notre Dame still has a chance." That's not what I did here, and that's not what I want to do here. What I am doing here is I am saying Notre Dame's playoff chances are not dead. So what I'm going to do is present my case. And how I'm going to present my case today is I'm going to show you guys the playoff history. And the playoffs they're going to have 12 teams next year, but the 14 playoffs since 2014, what they have looked like, who got in, and where the two lost teams were in the rankings. Then I want to talk about what Notre Dame has to do the rest of the season and what their rest of the season looks like. Who are the playoff contenders? What we need, or what Notre Dame needs for them to be a legitimate contender with two losses. And then I'm going to go break down the conferences a little bit, and then that's about it. That's about it. So let's go with the playoff history. Let's start off with the playoff history. So we are on our 246 23 24. Okay, so it's 2023. So we're on, this is seventh year. Ninth year. Wow, my math sucks. So this is our ninth year of the playoffs. And I actually have the playoff rankings pulled up. And so we're gonna chat about it. Let me put it on the screen. So what I'm gonna do first is we're going to look at every year except for 2020. Why except for 2020? 2020 was such a terrible year, with the COVID, the Pac-12 playing 6 games, and then the Big Ten playing 6 games. Now everyone has an extra season. So we're going to look at, where the two lost teams are in the ranking, how many games those two lost teams played, because a two-loss team that played 12 games and didn't win or lose in the championship it's different. It means different. Okay, so the very first one is 2014, the very first playoffs. You remember Jameis Winston and Oregon playing Ohio State in the national championship, and Zeke taking it to Bama. So obviously it was Bama, Oregon, Florida State, and Ohio State. And you remember that year Baylor and TCU played a knockdown drag-out game, and the Big 12 didn't have a championship, and they tied. They both were Big 12 champions. But if you look at number 7 and number 8, it is Mississippi State and Michigan State. 10-2, meaning they did not play the 13th data point. Idiots. And so that's where the first two-loss team is. That's 2014. If you look at 8, 9, 10, 11, Arizona making it to the Pac-12 championship is still baffling to me. So 2014, first two-loss team is 7th. Let's move on to 15. And I want to go through this relatively quickly. I hope I don't ramble on. But 2015, Michigan State making the playoffs. Are you kidding me? They got whooped by Bama. But 2015, we see 6th Stanford, and that's the year they won the Pac-12 over USC, and they beat Notre Dame on the last second field goal. You see Notre Dame there at 8th, Ohio State at 11. They got whipped that year. That's so interesting. But you see Notre Dame and Florida State there at 8 and 9, and Stanford there at 6. So we have that's the highest a 2-loss team has been. They did win their conference, so that is intriguing. Let's move on. 2016. I'm trying to prove a point here. Washington making the playoffs. Goodness, they got their butts kicked too. This is so interesting though. But 2016, Penn State, they won their conference that year. They actually beat Ohio State, and Ohio State got to go to the playoffs. Michigan there at 6. They lost to Ohio State and Penn State that year. Oklahoma, they're at 7, and then you have the 3-loss Wisconsin, who lost in the SEC championship to Penn State. They're at 8. So highest a 2-loss team has been. They actually won their conference, so that is interesting. But at 6, you have Michigan, and they played only 12 games. Move on, okay? Off the bat, number 5, Georgia. They played a 13th game. They lost to LSU in the SEC championship, and that was a world-beaten LSU team. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson, they were really good. One of the best offenses ever. Then you have Oregon. They won their conference. No, they did. Yeah, they did. 11-2, meaning they have that 13. 11-2, or lost in the conference championship to Oklahoma. There they are at 11-2. All right. So you guys are seeing a little bit of trend here, right? There are 2-loss teams everywhere. The 3-loss team, Wisconsin, Florida, Penn State. Man, I have Wisconsin over Penn State. Wisconsin did lose in the Big Ten championship to Ohio State that year. Man, that was a good season. That was a really good season. LSU was so good, though. It was tough. Let's move on to 2021. Again, 2020 is just a terrible year. You can't really take anything from it. Gosh, dog, I got to relive Cincinnati beating Notre Dame that year. That's terrible. Okay. You have at 6 Ohio State, 10-2, meaning they didn't play in the Big Ten championship. You have Baylor, who won the Big 12. They stopped the guy on 4th and 1 on the goal line to Oklahoma State, who Oklahoma State ended up winning against Notre Dame in the Fiesta. Let's not get into that. Oh, and then you have Ole Miss there at 10-2. So you have a 2-loss team at 6, 7, 8, 9. Take care of business against Cincinnati. Come on. 10, and then 3 lost Utah. And there you go. Where's last year? Let me get last year up. I didn't realize for some reason they don't have 2022 up here. Okay, let me just pull it up. Sorry about that. I don't know why they don't have 2022. All right, there we go. Here's 2022. I don't know. It is kind of weird that they didn't have 2022, but Alabama at number 5 didn't go to the conference championship. They played 12 games. Tennessee 10-2 didn't go to the conference championship. They played 12 games. Clemson, they won their conference 11-2. They ended up losing to Tennessee in the bowl game. 10-3 Utah, and they actually won their conference championship. So that one's interesting to me. 10-3 Kansas State. Then there's USC. So what my point is, in the history of the playoffs, a 2-loss team is in the top 5. The 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There is a 2-loss team there. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities for a 2-loss team to make the playoffs. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for a 2-loss team to be in playoff contention. Let me say that. So why do I keep saying a 2-loss team? Well, one, Notre Dame has 2 losses. We know that. And 2, Notre Dame, as we sit right now, is the highest ranked 2-loss team in the country. And I will show you that right now. There's Notre Dame at 5-2, and right behind them is LSU, 4-2. And I hope you guys noticed during all those rankings talk, there's not a whole lot of undefeated teams. There's not a whole lot of 1-loss teams. So what that means is, hey, teams are going to lose. If you look at the top 10, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Oklahoma, Penn State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, USC. There's 3 Pac-12 teams in it. There are 3 Big Ten teams in it. All 3 Pac-12 teams play each other, and all 3 Big Ten teams play each other. Then you have Florida State, who is interesting, and you have OU, Texas, and then Georgia by then lonesome. Alabama there. It's crazy that North Carolina is still undefeated. It baffles me. So that's point 1. It's the history of college football. Yes, it works against me for me saying, hey, Notre Dame still has a slight playoff chance. But also at the same time, it's point number 1. If a 2-loss team that didn't go to their conference championship is number 5, they are an ankle roll away from being number 4. The ball turning in a different direction from being number 4. A turnover here. That's what I am stating. Okay. So the second thing is Notre Dame. What does Notre Dame have? And I'll go on to the other teams here shortly. So what does Notre Dame have the rest of the season? They played number 10 USC this week. USC comes into this game 6-0, and they're almost, for a 6-0 team, they're a little down on themselves in a sense. They had to go to triple overtime against Arizona at home to win. Does that mean that Notre Dame's going to beat up on USC? No, that's not what I'm trying to say. Is USC can get got. That's what I'm saying. Is USC has a chance to, or Notre Dame has a chance to beat USC. So let's pull up Notre Dame's schedule here, and I'll break it down. All right. USC. They're 2-point favorites, Notre Dame, at home. I'm hearing that the weather is going to be pretty interesting. But they take care of business against USC. Then they get their bye. Jack Swarbrick, why is our bye coming in week 8 when we played in week 0? What are we doing? Okay, I digress. Then Pittsburgh, who is going to probably fire their coach at the end of the year. If I was a betting man. Then they go on the road at Clemson. That it looks like they finally have the time for that. It's saying 12 p.m., so it's going to be an early morning kick. Thank goodness. I can't take another night game. It's different at night. They go on the road to Clemson. That's going to be a rough one. Dabo Swinney is a heck of a coach, probably a top 5 coach in college football. And you're going to his house, and his team is fighting for their lives. They're learning and they're getting better, but there are people out there that want to get rid of Dabo Swinney, which is hysterical, but 2-time champion, you got to be kidding me. Then they have a bye after Clemson, so you have 2 byes in, so 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Goodness. Jack, I'm so glad he's retiring. Then senior night against Wake Forest, and then you get to go to Palo Alto, California to play Stanford, who should consider shutting down their program at this point. And that's a joke. That's a joke. I'm not saying Stanford should shut down their program, but they've got to do something to figure it out. They are the worst Power 5 team. If you did a ranking of Power 5 teams, I think Stanford would finish last. It may be Northwestern. Virginia Tech is terrible. So, I mean, let's see. Let's see who's the worst. Okay, Stanford's 1-5. Let's see. All right. So Stanford's 1-5. Oh, that's Arizona State. 1-4. No, I'm sorry. Arizona State, man. They stink too. Let's go. Illinois. No. Where's Northwestern? I misspoke. I'm pretty sure Northwestern hasn't played anybody, but they're a little bit better. Who is it? Virginia stinks, and that program, Virginia's they've had some hard times, and I get it, but it's going to be a while before they're good. Pitt, poor he's one of the most annoying coaches out there. So you know what? Vandy, yeah. I think Stanford is the worst program in the Power 5. So Notre Dame schedule after USC, it's doable. Clemson is I think Clemson is just as tough as USC, but Pitt, Wake Forest, Stanford, those games you got to win. And I'm more worried about Pitt than I am USC. And it's not like, hey, I think Pittsburgh's better than USC. No, it's Marcus Freeman has trouble getting the team ready to play against bad teams. And I'm not saying Louisville's a bad team, but he couldn't get him up to play Louisville, but he got him up to play Ohio State. They looked so much better in the Ohio State game, and they scored 14 points. That's why the scoreboard is always misleading. So Notre Dame's got to take care of business. And if they take care of business, what happened? Now I'm gonna go on to the next point. All right. Who are the playoff locks? And I'm gonna pull up the rankings here. Let's go. Let me pull up. I'll pull up rankings here and just show you guys where they stand right now. Okay. Georgia's 6-0. Put it on Kentucky. I think it's Georgia and everybody else. Really. When they wake up, it's SEC championship time and it's playoff time. They wake up. Okay, so in this scenario, who are the 2 locks? For Notre Dame, it's got to be Georgia. I mean, Georgia's just my pick. And then Ohio State. You want Ohio State to win out. With Ohio State winning out, that means they beat Michigan. That means they beat Penn State. So those two will have one loss, if you guys follow. So those are the two locks. And then who else? Who's in playoff contention? Obviously, Michigan still is, and Penn State still is with just one loss. Florida State being undefeated. Oklahoma, they were almost a lock. You know, and I'll cover Oklahoma when we get to the Big 12 section, but there's only one lock, and for Notre Dame to have a chance at making the playoffs, there needs to be two, and it's got to be Ohio State. And Ohio State winning out would help beat Michigan or help Notre Dame get in the playoffs. So there's only really one lock. I think Georgia's schedule is manageable enough that I don't see them stubbing their toe. So let's go over the conferences. And I'm going to start with the conference that hasn't had a team playoff representative in 5 years. And that is, so this is actually the 10th, is the Pac-12. Boom. Let's talk about the Pac-12. The Pac-12 right now has 7 teams that are in the top 25, 7 teams that are in the top 20. And as you can see here, USC, Oregon, Washington, Oregon State, Utah, UCLA, Washington State. 3 of them are undefeated. Oregon and Washington play each other this week, so there's one loss. Now, why did I start with Washington? And I didn't, or I mean with the Pac-12. They haven't had a playoff representative in 5 years. And they have 7 teams in the top 20. Then they have Arizona, who took USC to triple overtime. Colorado, who love them or hate them, big-time football. Everyone's going to watch them. And so with that, those 2 teams, they could get a Washington State. They could get a UCLA, and UCLA can beat a USC or an Oregon or a Washington. Oregon State has already beaten Utah and then lost to Washington State. Washington State has beat Oregon State and lost to UCLA. Utah is playing USC next week. Oregon and Washington play each other this week. Just a real quick note, I think it's really funny that ABC didn't put Washington and Oregon on prime time while USC and Notre Dame are playing on prime time. I think that's funny. And it is a telling sign what ESPN thinks about Notre Dame. Okay. Let's calm down. All right. What do we need for a 2-loss Notre Dame team to make the playoffs or have a chance? You got to beat USC, and USC either got to stub their toe once and still win the Pac-12. I think you want them to lose one more time. I'm not a USC fan. I actually can't stand USC. I tell people that if Notre Dame win 1-11 every year and then their one win was against USC, I'd be happy. The state of California, goodness, I just can't stand it. And I've been there once, so everyone loses. Right now, what? The 4 teams in the one in the top 15, one, and then the others. So 15, 16, 18, and 19, they have one loss. It's all to each other. UCLA lost to Utah. Okay. Then you're going to have either Oregon or Washington. I'm going to pick the home team on that. Washington wins. Oregon's going to drop down. USC's going to, let's say they're going to lose for this point. And for my data point, they lose to Notre Dame, so they drop down. So Notre Dame gets in the top 15. Oh, Jamar Jefferson's on the IR. Update. So you want USC to win this conference, but only sustain one more loss. A 10-2 USC team looks like a better win. Conference champion, 10-2 conference champion USC team looks so much better than a 9-3 or 8-4 USC team. And they still have Caleb Williams, so they'll be able to be in a lot of these games. So that's for the Pac-12 is going to eat itself up. Look at that. That's crazy. Okay. USC's got to win this conference, and I think they need one more loss other than Notre Dame. That's what we need. So next conference I'm going to talk about is the Big 12. Now, I was at the OU Texas game, Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry, Red River Showdown, whatever you want to call it. I was there. I was in Texas. I was at the Cotton Bowl. I walked around the State Fair. That was so fun. What can happen for Notre Dame, and their chances of making the playoffs is slim, but let me make my point. And I know I sound so crazy. I sound like a homer. I'm a diehard. Whatever. Get over it. But what can happen is OU wins out, Texas wins out. They play each other in the Big 12 championship, and Texas wins, and they both get in, which would be atrocious. But if you look at this, they have 3 ranked teams. OU already beat Texas. I think OU only loses one more game. And my prediction is they lose Bedlam. It's going to be at Oklahoma State. It's going to probably be a night game. I bet ABC will be there because it's one of the last ones they're ever going to play. That's just sad. This conference realignment crap. But so in this model that I have in this prediction, OU loses to Oklahoma State. Texas stubs their toe. It could be to Kansas. It could be to Houston. It doesn't matter. Houston stinks. Dana Holgerson's about to get fired. Oh, man. Dana or Kansas State. They play BYU. So Texas stubs their toe one more time, loses to OU, or doesn't make the Big 12 championship. That one is a little hard. So maybe you need OU, both of them, to have 2 losses. That one's a little tough. But Texas doesn't look spectacular. They look spectacular against Alabama, and we'll get to Alabama later. But Quinn Ewers sometimes looks like a first-round draft pick quarterback, and then sometimes looks like, not gonna say Drew Pine, and I don't want to hate on Drew Pine, but he gets rattled like Drew did. So the Big 12 is interesting. They don't have divisions, so it'll be the top 2 teams. Right now, it's West Virginia. Come on. They're 2-0 in conference play. I watched when they played Penn State. They didn't look so great, but they run the ball. They got a pretty good offensive line and a good running back. So, I mean, if they get someone in Morgantown, I'd love to. I need to dive into West Virginia's schedule. But in this, Oklahoma and Texas are the 2 playoff teams, playoff chance teams. And you just need someone to get Texas and someone to get OU. I have money on Oklahoma State getting OU. So I'll go to the ACC. Now, this is where it gets interesting for Notre Dame because the ACC is first, isn't it? Boom. There it is. They don't have divisions either. And right now, Louisville's sitting up top 3-0. So what do we do about Louisville? Do we cheer for Louisville to go undefeated and win the ACC? I mean, it's possible, but it's not going to happen. And their schedule is soft. I think they play Pitt, Duke. I think then they go to Pitt, Duke, and this is Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami, and I think that's it. I mean, that's just a terrible schedule. Goodness gracious, and all of course Kentucky. So I think you just got to cheer for Duke and Clemson. I would rather have two good wins instead of I would rather have two good wins and a bad loss instead of a bad loss and two okay wins. So you cheer for Kentucky to beat Louisville at the end of the year. You cheer for Duke. You cheer for Miami. You cheer for – they've already played at North Carolina State. So whoever else they play, let's see. Actually, why don't I just look at it from right there? Okay, let's go to Louisville. I'll just pull up their schedule real quick for you guys. So Pitt, Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami, Kentucky. So you cheer for Duke and you cheer for Kentucky. There you go. Two losses. I think Notre Dame could jump Louisville, even though they lost to them 33-20. I mean, for an undefeated team to be ranked 14th right now, a loss to Duke probably puts them in the 20s. A loss to Kentucky, by that time, they're probably still in the 20s. All right. Let's go back. So, Florida State is a playoff team right now. Their schedule is actually somewhat challenging. And I don't think Florida State. Jordan Travis is really good, though. Jordan Travis is good. That verse, that end is really good. Their wide receivers are really good. They have talent, but they do have to go to Florida. They do also have Duke, so you're cheering for that good win. And they have Miami. I think a road game against Florida is extremely tough. And you cheer for Mike Elko. And that there's two losses right there, and they're probably going to have to play Duke, Louisville, and or Clemson. I'm hoping it's Clemson in the ACC championship. I want either Duke or Clemson to win the ACC. And if Duke, Clemson, and USC win their conference, that's a good look for Notre Dame. So you see that? Is it out of the realm of possibility for Clemson to turn it around and win their conference and still lose to Notre Dame? Yes, because the ACC is not that good. North Carolina is undefeated. I understand. But on a neutral site game right now, who are you favoring, North Carolina or Notre Dame? I take Notre Dame, but if it was at North Carolina, I mean, they ran all over them last year at North Carolina. So I don't know. Duke has to play North Carolina. So again, if we're cheering for Duke, Duke beats North Carolina. So in this model, I have Clemson winning the ACC. I know I sound crazy saying that, but you shouldn't sound crazy. They've won the ACC like 10 years in a row. My voice is going out. I was screaming and talking all the time. So when it gets high, it goes out a little bit. So that's the ACC. Let's go to the SEC. Why the SEC before the Big Ten? Well, the Big Ten had two teams last year. The SEC had one. So here we go. The SEC. Georgia is a lock. Already locked in Georgia. So that means they beat everyone in the East. Tennessee will have two losses. They play Alabama. So what's important is the West. Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss. Well, LSU already has two losses. You hope they get a couple more. But Ole Miss is not. They're such an inconsistent team. They're going to get another one. Alabama's the one. If Alabama wins out, they're in the playoffs. But you got to have Alabama stub their toe one more time, whether it is to LSU. And LSU could beat Alabama and then lose somewhere else. That's just what you get with Brian Kelly right now. And he used to be consistent as all get out. So LSU against Auburn is going to – I don't think Auburn could score with them, but they got Auburn, Army, Alabama, Florida. That's a good one. And Texas A&M. So can you see LSU running the table here? Even if they do, they're probably not a playoff team. So let's just do Alabama. Alabama is the one that scares me a little bit because on the defensive side of the ball, they're really good. They have Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, and Auburn, and Chattanooga. My goodness. Why do they allow these guys to play scrubs? But they got to stub their toe one more time before going up against Georgia. Because if Alabama goes into the SEC championship with one loss and it's Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart for a game that means everything for Alabama and almost nothing from Georgia, I'm going to take Nick Saban in that. So that's the SEC. Basically, East got to beat itself. Georgia take care of business. Boom. The last one is the hardest one. This is where Notre Dame's playoff chances, slim playoff chances, reside. The Big Ten. So obviously you can't have two teams coming from the same conference. It's just too hard to get in, right? But hey, if you look at it, Ohio State, that really good loss, and I know it sounds terrible saying that, but Ohio State wins out. Penn State and Michigan both have a loss. So then you need them to stub their toe one more time. Well, Penn State and Michigan play each other. For Notre Dame's chances, you got to have Penn State win. Why is it Penn State? Well, one, if Penn State wins, Michigan's got a loss before they get to the Ohio State game. And after that is who's more likely to stub their toe other than Ohio State? And it's Penn State. I think Maryland could beat Penn State. Depending on where that game is, I might take Maryland. And it's at Maryland. Tulia Tagovailoa, I think it's Tulia. Is it? Let's see. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. Okay, I'll just say Tagovailoa. I can't believe I can pronounce that, not his first name. But Tagovailoa is a good quarterback. And Drew Aller he's developing, but on the road at Maryland, a competent offense, there's a chance there. So that's why you got to cheer for Penn State over Michigan. And the best part about that is the Penn State over Michigan, it's at home for Penn State. So it's doable. So you have Penn State losing to Maryland and to Ohio State, and you have Michigan losing to Penn State and to Ohio State winning out. Boom. There you go. There it is. So in this, I have, let's go, standings. Boom. All right. So obviously, and I'm just going to wrap this up, right? In this, in order for Notre Dame to make the playoffs. And I can't tell you who we need to win and lose other than the big picture ones. Duke, Clemson, Ohio State. Those are the three teams we want to win. right? Then those are the three teams you're cheering for. Then the three teams few teams that you're not cheering for: Texas, Bama, Georgia, and there's four teams. Let's just throw Georgia in there. Texas, Bama, the Pac-12 to utterly demolish themselves. And in that, you want USC to lose one, not multiple. Florida State. Now, actually, if you're cheering for Duke and Clemson, Florida State will be taken care of. Okay. Just teams that don't get covered by the teams you're cheering for. I think you don't cheer for Louisville. It's a bad loss. That's what it would be better as a bad loss than you'd rather have a good win than a good win and a bad loss than just a bad loss and okay win. So Oklahoma, it doesn't really matter. Michigan, I wouldn't cheer for Michigan if Michigan winning gave Notre Dame a chance to make the playoffs. I wouldn't cheer for Michigan. I'm sorry. And that's the same for USC too. So I want USC to win the Pac-12. So goodness gracious. So that's it. So the Texas, Bama, the Pac-12 to demolish themselves, Louisville to lose, Michigan and Penn State. That's it. And the Pac-12 has shown that they demolish themselves. So in this, with me saying all this is all very possible. And I will actually make a few episodes every week just to go over what's going on. If Notre Dame beats USC, I will do another episode at like, hey, this is what's going on. This is da-da-da-da-da, right? And that's all I have for you guys. Let me put my ugly mug back up here. Boom. Goodness, okay. And that's what I have. I have 42 minutes. My goodness. I can talk a lot about college football and Notre Dame. So that's it. Please let me know in the comments what you think. If I'm crazy or what I'm saying doesn't register. I know we just watched Notre Dame travel to Louisville and lose 33-20. But if Notre Dame takes care of business against USC and Clemson, they have a really good shot at finding themselves in the top 10, and crazy things happen in college football. I showed you guys where the two loss teams stacked up in previous playoff rankings, and it is possible. It is. Why not have a 2-loss team in the playoffs in the last year of the playoffs? So I'll leave you guys with this. I don't think Notre Dame's going to make the playoffs. I don't think they have a great shot at it, but it's not impossible. And it's not they used to say a 16 seed can't beat a 1 seed. And that's happened twice now in my lifetime. Before that, it never happened. And now it's happened a couple of times. So I cheer for chaos and cheer for Notre Dame to beat USC. Watch and enjoy college football. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Peace. Go Irish.